Chapter 2 of Somme Battle Stories by Alec John Dawson. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 2: The Spirit of the British Soldier. There is no vestige of any falling off in the general level of high spirits and confidence among our wounded officers and men from the battlefields of the Somme. One writes of battlefields in the plural, because in this push there have already been a score and more engagements which, as we used to judge war, would take rank as very notable and sanguinary battles, just as there have been literally many thousands of individual acts which in war as we have known it in the past would have won for those responsible the very highest distinctions we have to offer. I don't know what the dispatch writers, let alone the military historians, are going to do about this Somme fighting, said an elderly major, wounded in hand and shoulder, on the Bapaume Albert road below Pozieres. I saw rather a wider sector than some other officers, simply because it happened I had to get to and fro several times between our brigade headquarters and 3 of our battalions. I assure you I could easily compile a volume of bald records of individual acts of heroism and the heroism of isolated sections, taking only what I saw with my own eyes. But I should hesitate to do it, because of the implied injustice to the troops on other sectors. I've talked with lots of officers between the trenches and here, including one divisional staff officer and 2 of brigade staffs from different parts of our front, and I gather the same impression from all. The things I saw would have been exceptional, very exceptional, and the sort of things that pages and pages were written about before this war. But they weren't in the least exceptional as incidents of this present push go. Some things have been happening literally all along our line, and during every hour of every day and night since July 1st. "Does that tally with your experience?" one asked a company commander who was leaning beside us on the ship's rail waiting for his time to go ashore for the train. His left arm was in a sling and bandages were swathed about his head. "Funny, I was just asking myself that very question. I was just thinking," replied Captain . "I was wondering how I'd manage if some one asked me for a dozen names from my own company for men to receive distinctions. I tell you it would be a devil of a job, and one I'd much rather not have. Suppose I try to think, on the other hand, of any one man in my company, or in what I saw of the rest of the battalion since July 1st, whom I'd just as soon have been without, a man who didn't play the game as well as he might have done. Gad, do you know, there's not a blessed one, not a single one. And what's more, I haven't heard of one in any other unit, not a single one, and one hears a devil of a lot, one way and another, bucking with this man and the other all the way between there and here, you know. 'Fraid I'm not much of a praying man, but tell you what, if I'd set to work praying on the night before we went into this show, and mind you, I dare say lots of chaps not previously given that way did pray that night. It's a big thing, you know, taking your men into a real large-scale battle for the first time, when they were all civilians a little time back, and perhaps you were the same yourself. If I had, on that last night of June, I reckon what I should have prayed would have been that my company should accomplish just about half what it did. 'Pon my soul, I shouldn't have dared to ask that they should do all that they actually did when the time came. I should have thought that was asking a jolly sight more than was reasonable. No, I'd have asked for about half what I got, and thought myself thundering lucky if I got it. As it was, I'm perfectly certain that a company of guardsmen, with 10 years soldiering behind each man of 'em, couldn't have done more than my chaps did. They mightn't even have done quite as much. You see, our chaps felt the honour of the new army was at stake, and its reputation all to make. We told 'em what the Boche newspapers said about 'em, how Kitchener's men didn't count seriously and all that, and by gad they went into the scrap like knights of the olden time, with their ladies looking on, you know. as though the new army would stand or fall in history according as each single one of 'em carried himself in this show. You couldn't check 'em, nothing was too bad for 'em, and I give you my word, nothing you can possibly say will be too good for 'em." "Well, Sergeant, what's yours?" The inquiry was addressed to a fine, upstanding sergeant of the Middlesex, who elected to walk ashore instead of being carried, though he was glad of a comrade's shoulder to lean on. A year or two ago the question might have suggested an American bar, but not on the landing stage at Southampton in these days. "Oh, I got it just below me thigh here, sir. Nothing to write home about, anyway. I ought to be back this way again in a week or two. I hope I will. You see, sir, the second sergeant in my platoon got it fairly in the neck, proper bad, I'm afraid he is. They do say he may have to lose his right foot. Anyhow, he won't be back for some time, if at all, and it's bad for the platoon for the two of us to be away. Now they've made such a fine start I want to be with 'em and keep 'em up to it. Though you wouldn't have said they wanted much keeping up to it, sir, not if you'd seen 'em at it. I reckon they saved the battalion's flank there between Auteuil and Ovillers. And there's no sort of doubt they smashed the flank of the Boche battalion. He'd got a regular nest of typewriters there, machine guns, I should say, sir. We stood it for a bit, and then my officer he began to get pretty mad with 'em. Always was a bit on the hot-tempered side, you know, sir, but as good an officer as ever I served with. 'Here, damn their German eyes,' he says, just like that, when he sees our chaps a-dropping. 'We'll get these devils in the flank,' he says. 'They're not going to get off my platoon that way. Come on, Sergeant,' he says, 'at the double now. Get those bombers of ours close up here behind me.' We fairly raced then for their right flank, and all there was of us tumbled down into their ditch all of a lump. 'Bombers here,' yells my officer. He'd got 2 machine-gun bullets in him then. Much he cared for that. We got our bombers up, and, well, as my officer said, sir, we did fairly give 'em hell after that. The platoon went through that trench like a dose of salts, as you might say, sir. Worried along it like terriers in a rat earth. Never so glad in me life to have plenty of bombs. We bombed the trench fair empty, and any Boche that missed the bombs, well, he got the steel and got it good and hard. In and out and in again every time to make sure. And that's how our battalion was able to make such a good advance, sir. The rest of our company was layin' doggo while we promenaded down that bloomin' trench. And when my officer gave the word, he'd got a 3rd bullet in him then, sir, not to mention bomb splinters and the like o' that. They come on like a cup-tie football crowd, and the rest of the battalion after them. They went over that first line with hardly a casualty, barrin' just a few from shrap, and if they didn't give the Boche what for in his second and third lines, I'd like to know. My officer was fair runnin' blood by then. He got so many splinters, you see, sir, about the head and face, besides the 3 bullets he got in him. I found him sittin' on a Boche machine-gun lightin' a fag, a cigarette, I should say, sir. The Boche machine-gunner was there too, only he'd never smoke no more cigarettes, nor fire no more machine-guns. He was done up pretty nasty, sir, was that gunner, but his gun was all right, because I saw 2 of our own M.G. section firing of it not many minutes later. I tried to make my officer let me help him back for dressin', but he wouldn't have it, not then. He smoked his cigarette while I put the platoon on cleaning out dugouts in that trench. I don't mean the mud, you know, sir. We knew we weren't going to hold the trench because we was pushin' farther on. No, but a good many Boches had taken cover in them dugouts, and what wouldn't come out when we gave 'em their own bat, you know, sir, "Kommen Sie hier," and all that. Well, they had their choice between bomb and bayonet, as you might say. There was a few of 'em played the game pretty well, I will say. They'd a young officer with 'em, and they fired at us as fast as we could get near the mouth of their dugout. We didn't want to hurt the beggars, but we'd got our job, same's they'd had theirs, and in the end theirs was bombs in the neck. But most of the others jumped to the word and come out quick and lively on the order. We got 47 of 'em, very little damaged. We disarmed the lot, and when we joined up with the rest of the company my officer took that bunch of prisoners back to our old lines by himself. Got 2 of the biggest to carry him at the rear of the squad on 2 rifles. He had his revolver in one hand and a Mills bomb in the other. "Cheero, Sergeant," he says to me. "Keep the boys a movin' till I get back. But bless you, sir, they don't want any tellin'. No more terriers want tellin' to get after rats." I was wounded half an hour after that, and next time I saw my officer was down at the dressin' station. I only saw the one German officer, that boy in the dugout. I think that's one reason why the Boche is losin' heart a bit, and shows himself pretty ready to be taken prisoner. His officers do keep most uncommon well out of the way, very different from ours; and I suppose it makes their men feel the game is up. But they fight real well till they're right on top of 'em, I'll say that. Only, man for man, when it comes to it, they can't live 'longside our chaps, you know, sir. Not they. End of Chapter 2